Hi, my name's Richard. My wife Charlotte and I are known as hikers too in the geocaching community. We've been geocaching since 2003, and one of these days we're going to hit 3,000 caches. However, we have cached in 42 different states, and we've been to a number of geo woodstocks, which we enjoy very much.
And I'm C. Flute. I'm a team with Pam, and we're both retired school teachers, so it's something that keeps us busy and definitely out of trouble. We can go on biking trails if we want. We can hike. We can just do guardrails. We've been caching since 2008, and we have 3,555 caches.
Good for you.
And Richard and Charlotte, Hikers Too, were some of our mentors, so we're following them.
But one thing about it, we have a lot of fun. We get out, we do things, and it's a good hobby for us. And you can do it. There are some very physical caches, which we don't do, but there are a lot of others that we can do, and so that's the way we work it. When it quits being fun, then you go home and think about it, and then go out and go caching again.
And these are just some of the different types of geocaches. You might find something as small as this, which is a nano, or as large as this, which is an ammo box. You could find a fake log with the geocache inside. You might find a bolt, and if you open this up, there's a geocache right in the middle of here. Pine cone is typical. A fake bolt is my favorite. That's the kind you might find if you were looking maybe on a guardrail or anything that has metal on it. A lot of people use matchstick containers, and of course they use pill bottles. There's fake grass. There's a golf ball with a geocache underneath the golf ball. You could find a shell with a geocache. You can make them. You can buy them. But all of you people here that are not geocachers, you would be considered a muggle because you're a non-geocacher.
How do I find them? I find them with a GPS. And my wife uses a smartphone, and together we can pretty well zero in where they are. But before we go out to do geocaching, we pull up the caches that we're interested in on geocaching.com and try to get a sequence of caches where we can do a kind of a circle. And then we you're able from geocaching.com to load them into your GPS, and out you go and start looking. Oh, the favorite I've ever found, probably our first one. You know, I found our first one in 2003 with my family up in Vermont, and it was called Sleepy Hollow, and it was in an old country cemetery way out in the middle of nowhere, up on the New Hampshire border in northern Vermont, and that kind of got us hooked on it.
I don't know that I have a particular one favorite, but the ones I really enjoy are the ones that take us to historical places, like maybe a one-room schoolhouse, to a cemetery. You're not allowed to hide a cache in a cemetery, but you can go in there and maybe take numbers from a headstone, and those become the coordinates that you would need to go find your cache somewhere else. So I like the historical places.
My name is Fred McShay. My wife and I are a geocaching team. We go by McShay 105. We're from Goffstown, New Hampshire. We got started almost 5 years ago. The town of Goffstown was having its bicentennial celebration, and they were running a scavenger hunt at the time. We knew nothing about geocaching, had never heard of it, but our daughter got us involved in the scavenger hunt, and it was a contest. Took us to various places around town, historical places, one-room schoolhouses, and the like. We won that contest as a team, and our daughter had heard about geocaching slightly before that, and so she suggested to us that if you like the scavenger hunt, you probably really like geocaching. And by the way, there's a session at the library in Goffstown coming up shortly in a couple of weeks that they're going to teach and train people about geocaching. So we went to that session, and we sat there and we listened to Randy and Fred, the two instructors at the time. They showed us all the different containers and whatever, and they told us about how geocachers go out in the woods, and they go hiking or they go mountain climbing or scuba diving, whatever. And so our impression, honestly, at the time was these people are nuts, really. I mean, we left the thing and we said, you know, even outside, after it was over, you know, there's a geocache they created in the parking lot for that day. But to further on, but we did, you know, start geocaching, and we're nuts. Okay. Our claim to fame is from that date was June 26th of 2011 is when we started our first cache. A couple weeks after that, we became aware of a 30-day streak. We got involved in that, and we cached for 30 consecutive days, and we met that challenge. Then we realized there was a 100-day streak, so we kept going, and we got to 100 days in a row. And then we thought, why stop? So we didn't. So our most memorable cache was done with a group of our friends in Rockport, Mass, at the Old Man of the Sea Monument. Many of you, I'm sure you're probably all aware of. There's a virtual cache there, which is our favorite types of caches. And that particular cache was our 3,000th cache, and it was our 1,000th day in a row, which is our claim to fame. We even have some pictures that were taken by our friends at that time. So, and we have since realized that, looking back at our statistics, which Groundspeak does keep for you, that our longest slump, which is the number of days you've gone in a row without finding a geocache since you started your geocaching career, is 5. Our longest slump to this day is still 5 days, and so that's one of our focus items now, to at least find a cache once every 5 or 6 days. So now we are crazy. We're amongst the group. I mean, 1,000 cache days later, 3,000 caches. We're pushing 4,000 caches right now. So we've enjoyed it. The best part of geocaching is the people you meet, the friends we've made. One of the people here, who I hope will talk after I do, was sitting behind us in the same class at the Goffstown Library that I referred to. And they're as crazy as we are about the hobby.
I'm Charlotte, and I am one half of Hikers 2 and cacher from Pelham, New Hampshire.
Hi, I'm Bob Gunnels. My caching name is B. Gunnels.
I want to ask everybody to please come and attend our Twixt Spring and Summer event, which is going to be held on May 14th this year, and it will be our 13th annual event, and we are calling it the Baker's Dozen. May 14th, set your calendar, 12 noon to 4 p.m. We hope to see you there.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the Berkshire Geobash. The Berkshire Geobash is a mega event. A mega event is one that has at least 500 participants, and this year we expect 1,000 or more. And it will be held in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, in the Berkshires on July the 16th. Leading up to the event, the Saturday, the event is a whole week of activities and other events. And if you're a cacher and have never been to a mega event, this is your opportunity. It's the only mega event in New England.
Well done.
Hi, I'm Meredith. In the geocaching community, I'm known as Grassmere Duo. My husband Dave and I have been caching for nearly 5 years. We chose our name because we live in the Grassmere section of Goffstown, and the very first cache we chose to find was in Goffstown as well. And it was the tiniest little thing ever, and I could not imagine how you could find that on a wrought iron railing and everything. But we have cached from California to Maine to Florida, and we have really experienced a lot of really awesome places and different hide types. Now, when we all go in the woods, we all have favorite places we like to go visit, and what we think are little secret hiding places or nice vistas. We think a lot of people don't know about it. Well, yeah, there's caches hidden, so because we want to take you to all our favorite places too. And so some of the really memorable ones have been in Arcadia, climbing up on a rock hill in Maine and finding caches on the top there. And others have been in Florida, officially below sea level, and finding caches there. So there's a whole variety of them. But what I had thought I wanted to demonstrate, or at least tell people about, is how to have a really well-prepared caching bag. The things we carry with us, and there's a variety of bags. There's little bags the size of purses, and some of us like to carry full-size backpacks. But besides a headlamp and flashlight, because you come out of the woods after dark if you don't plan to, you should carry maybe spare containers and spare paper logs and maybe baggies, because the caching community is really helpful and friendly. And if we find a cache that's in need of some minor repairs to keep it going, we'll do that, and you should do that. And if it's a really major repair, you might want to contact the cache owner, and they'll do the major repairs and everything. Do not go without, take multiple pens, because if you lose a pen on the trail, which we all have, you need to be able to sign the log. To me, that's only official if your signature is on the log. There have been people who have taken sticks, stuck them in the dirt, and made a mark. If you have to, that counts. But just don't say, I saw the cache, but I didn't have a pen with me. Because if you find my cache, you're going to find your log deleted. It's just not fair. But some of the other things you might want to bring with you would be a pair of tweezers, because some of the cache containers are very, very tiny, and it's difficult to get them out. Other things might be a long extended magnet, a little tool. It folds down this long, and it's expendable, and you can need to reach for magnetic containers. But some of the memorable caches, and even out back from the studio down along the river in Mines Falls, there's a tree that's extended out into the canal, and you have to climb out on that log, a whole tree. You have to climb out hand over hand, hang on to branches to get the caches. So that's fun. But some of the other memorable ways to find caches on kayaks, there's some caches that are placed along the rivers and ponds, and you can only access them because they're on trees that are hanging over the water. So we use kayaks. A lot of us like the bike trips. Every rail trail, every path in the woods that you're allowed to bike on, they're loaded with caches as well. So we hike, we bike, we kayak, and those are some of the 3 major ways that we find the caches.
I'm Private Pilot 172, and I've been geocaching for a little bit over 2 years now, and I have about to hit 400 finds. It's a great experience for me. It gets me out, keeps me busy. Working on the 351 challenge, and that's a lot of fun. Get to go to a lot of Massachusetts towns that I've never really been to before, and it's a great experience, great caches. The Massachusetts 351 challenge is basically what you're doing is there's 351 towns in Massachusetts. So basically in Massachusetts, you want to go to each town and find a cache in that town and complete that town as a challenge. And when you're done, you get a set of coordinates and you go to this cache and you find it and you complete the series. Different environment, basically. You go out in the woods sometimes and find caches in the woods that you don't really know are there. Sometimes they're tricky. My favorite cache that I ever found was a fake log. And it took me and Cyclone Steve, I want to say 2 hours to find. We were searching everywhere and we were about to quit. And we took one last look at it and we found it. It was a fake log. And it literally looked like a real tree stump. And it stumped us both, that's for sure. It's a great thing to do. On rainy days, I enjoy it. When there's no muggles out, quick finds, park and grabs, stuff like that. It's great to do.
Hi, my name's Norman, and I'm a geocacher. I go by the name Strek2, and that's from Star Trek, and I just happened to pick it because I liked it. A lot of times, when I started going geocaching, it was by myself or sometimes with my wife, and I see a picture of my wife here holding up a gem that we found up in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, because we used to vacation up there a lot. And so we go to a lot of different places, a lot of different areas, and we have geocaching events. This was a flash mob that they had in Manchester a couple years ago when they had what was it, the May the 4th flash mob. And so it's a group of people, we just kind of all over the place. And in addition to regular events, they have mega events. And a mega event is something where there's like 500 or more geocachers all together. And they have a lot of people coming up. They have a lot more of things going on during the area. And it's just a great time. And this one was out in the Berkshires, and they hold it every year. And it's just a great time. Another thing, at the Berkshire, you see people from all over the country. And you can see one here from New York that they put on the back of their thing, like they make quick stops. And it just struck me funny, so I just took a picture of it. And so they have a good time. Everybody has a good time. There was one here that was near Haverhill, Mass, called Lemonade Stand. It wasn't a mega event, but it was a good time. Everybody had fun, and they hold this one every year. It's by a small pond. In addition to regular caches, we have things called earth caches. And you need to go to a certain location and get pieces of information. And these two guys here are trying to do some measuring on probably some type of a sinkhole or a pothole. And that's why it kind of looks funny. And speaking of potholes, this isn't a pothole, but caches are sometimes hidden down in holes. This is along the Ashalot Rail Trail someplace. I don't know specifically which one. So, and Grassmere Duo, who was on earlier, we do some bike riding, and this was one of the trails we did in the fall. So it takes you a lot of different places, and they have a lot of different challenges, more events. This one was to do with it was a cookout that we had over in Rye area, and it's in October, and it rained for a couple years that they had. But it's a fun time. I never was, like I said, I never was good at selfies. The one back here is part of an earth cache, and that's also in the coast area of New Hampshire. In addition to Grassmere Duo and I I was doing a class with her on how to do GSAC, which is a tool that you can use to help log your caches and keep track of them and everything. And that one where she was in there was we had gotten pinged a notification saying that there's a cache that's about a mile away, and we went out and got it, and that was a Halloween night. The only reason I'm pointing at this is because my name is Norman, and that looks like an N. And we found this out in the Pawtuckaway area. So, and that same trip, we had found this little cemetery where there was a cache, which was really kind of a neat place. And we had a couple other people with us on this trip. So, like I said, these geocaches, they take you all over the place, from events to in Dunkin' Donuts to caches up in Pittsburgh, back on rail trails over on the western part of the state. So all over. In fact, they have a nice challenge. It's called the New Hampshire 234 Challenge. And what it will do, or it requires you to do, is to go to get at least one cache, doesn't matter what type, whether it be a puzzle cache or traditional or a multi, but get one cache in every town in New Hampshire. And if you can do that, you qualify to get the final, and it just takes you to places that you never would have thought. This one here is by the airport in Manchester, and the only time people usually have been able to get it is in the winter time when that little pond behind me is frozen, because that piece of scrap metal next to it behind me is a car that's like half sunk in the mud there, and that's where a cache is located. Now I think it's a lot better. We've also did coastal ones where a group of us have gone out and gone caching on another rail trail. They also have certain types of puzzle caches where, okay, this thing was called a cryptix. You had to twist it back and forth to try and get it open to get to the log. I mean, you could find it easy enough, but getting it open to sign the log was another story. So, but overall, oh, yeah, I forgot about this. A couple of us were going in as two different groups for the same day, And what Grassmere Duo was that she got to this particular cache first, so she left us a note, and to anyone else who happened to find that cache that day saying, hey, you know, this is for Streck 2, and he's going to be coming later on to find this one, which I thought was funny. So, you know, we do get along. Earth caches, here's another one. Some people might recognize that in the background. So I won't give it away, and I won't give away what the questions were. Oh, there was another one too that we've seen around here that was here in Nashua a few months back called, it's called a traveling cache. It doesn't stay put. It actually moves. And I think right now it's in Montana someplace. But at this point here, it was in near a cemetery here in town. So, you know, you get all kinds of things, all kinds of adventures. You can see amazing things that when you go on these trails that you never knew existed.